Once upon a time, Jafar had taken a young and beautiful new wife named Kamala. One day, Kamala visited the home of a friend and was captivated by the exquisite black floor that graced her friend's house. It was smooth and shining, a stark contrast to the sample floor in her own home. Kamala admired it greatly and asked her friend about its remarkable appearance. It's the blood of beast my husband the hunter brings home, the friend explained. I mix the blood with the mud of the floor to achieve the splendid finish. Upon returning home, Kamala remained silent throughout the evening. Jafar noticed her silence, inquired about her mood. Kamala finally spoke, expressing her envy of the beautiful floor she had seen and requested Jafar to provide the same for her. She wanted the blood of the birds that came to shield him from the sun each morning to be mixed with the mud of her floor. Jafar was reluctant and refused her request. Kamala withdrew into silence, and for several days she neither spoke nor smiled. Finally, Jafar relented and promised that the next morning some of the birds would be sacrificed as she wished. The next day, Jafar waited beneath a large tree for the birds to appear. However, not a single bird came to shade him. Eventually, the eagle descended and spoke to the cock. Did you hear what Jafar promised his wife? The eagle said. No, replied the cock, but I noticed that none of us have come to shade him today, so I stayed away as well. The king has promised his wife that he would kill some of us to mix our blood into her floor, making it black and shining, the cock explained. Ah, said the eagle, we would have to address this. Around mid-morning, the eagle visited Jafar, with Kamala waiting anxiously behind the door. Jafar greeted the eagle and asked why he was late. We were discussing two questions, the eagle responded. Jafar asked about the questions and their answers. The first was, the eagle said, which is longer, the day or the night? I answered that from dawn until almost bedtime is considered daytime, so the day is longer than the night. Am I correct? Jafar confirmed that the eagle was right. And the second question, Jafar inquired. The second was, the eagle continued, which are more numerous, men or women? I answered that women are more numerous. For a man who is controlled by his wife is not better than a woman. Am I not correct? Jafar, no longer surprised, nodded in agreement. You are right. You may go and tell the other birds to return tomorrow. And so, Kamala's request for the bird's blood remained unfulfilled, and she had to be content with herself with the floor she already had. As the days passed, Kamala's obsession with the black floor began to wane, replaced by a gnawing sense of something unresolved. One night, as she lay restless in bed, she noticed a faint glimmer of light coming from a hidden corner of her room. Curiosity piqued. She rose and discovered a small ancient box tucked away behind a collection of old books on a shelf. The box was intricately carved with patterns she did not recognize. With trembling hands, she opened it to reveal a weathered parchment inside. The parchment was covered in strange symbols and a cryptic message that read, to see the truth beyond the veil, seek the hidden shadows where the moonlight fails. Kamala's heart raced as she pondered the message. What shadows did it refer to? What was hidden in the moonlight's absence? Driven by a growing sense of intrigue, she decided to investigate further. That night, as the palace grounds were cloaked in darkness, Kamala ventured outside with the parchment clutched in her hand. The moonlight cast long, airy shadows across the garden, and she moved stealthily towards the more secluded areas of the grounds. The parchment had indicated a place where the moonlight barely touched, and she began her search there. Her exploration led her to a corner of the garden that was shrouded in dense vines and overgrown shrubs. There, partially concealed, was an old wooden door. It was almost as if the door had been waiting for the discovery. With a sense of anticipation, she pushed it open and it creaked loudly, revealing a dark, narrow tunnel. With a lantern in hand, Kamala descended into the tunnel. The air was musty and the walls were lined with ancient markings that glowed faintly in the lantern's light. Her footsteps echoed softly as she walked deeper into the darkness. After what felt like an eternity, she arrived at a small chamber filled with dusty relics and scrolls. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal with an ancient book resting upon it. The book's cover was adorned with the mysterious symbols. Kamala approached it with cautious reverence and opened it. The pages were filled with more cryptic writings and an intricately drawn map of the palace grounds. An X was marked in a location she did not recognize. Her mind raced as she studied the map. She knew she had to follow its directions. The next morning, she set out for the location marked on the map. The area was a secluded part of the garden, where wild plants and vines had overrun the once tended space. Kamala dug carefully at the spot indicated by the map and uncovered a weathered chest. With bated breath, she opened the chest. Inside, she found an assortment of ancient relics and another parchment. The parchment bore a new message. The true gift is not what is sought, but in the understanding of the heart's desire. To find the answer, seek the wisdom within. The message was enigmatic, but Kamala felt a profound sense of clarity. The journey had led her to uncover not just hidden objects, but deeper insights into herself. She realized that her desire for the black floor had been a symbol of her quest for something more meaningful, self-fulfillment and understanding. Returning to her chamber, Kamala reflected on her discoveries. She understood now that true fulfillment came not from external symbols, but from understanding her own heart and desire. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that her journey had led her to this revelation. With newfound clarity, Kamala approached Jafar. Her demeanor was calm and thoughtful, and she spoke with a sincerity that came from her heart. "Jafar," she began, "I have come to understand that my desire for the black floor was not merely about its beauty. It symbolized my deeper quest for self-discovery and fulfillment. I no longer wish for the floor, but for wisdom and inner peace." Jafar listened intently, his eyes reflecting both surprise and admiration. "You have found wisdom beyond what I could provide. Your journey of discovery has revealed the true nature of your desires." Kamala felt a profound sense of contentment. Her quest had led her to a deeper understanding of herself, and she was ready to embrace the wisdom she had gained. As the sun rose over the palace, casting its light onto the gardens and the now familiar tree, Kamala and Jafar stood together, their hearts aligned in understanding. The true beauty of their life together was found not in the superficial, but in the shared journey of discovery and self-realization. And so, the story of Kamala's quest became a testament to the power of inner wisdom and fulfillment found in understanding one's true self. As the weeks went by, the palace appeared to settle back into its usual splendor. But within Kamala, unrest simmered beneath the surface. Although she had claimed to find peace in her journey, her heart was still troubled. Her envy of the other woman's black floor had not dissipated. Instead, it had transformed into a deeper dissatisfaction with her own life. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned into a fiery orange, Kamala's frustration reached a boiling point. She found Jafar in his study, deeply engrossed in his scrolls. The sight of him absorbed in his work stirred a familiar pang of resentment within her. The promises he had made seemed empty in the face of her continued longing. "Jafar," Kamala began, her voice edged with bitterness, "I am still haunted by the promises you made. You spoke of wisdom and understanding, but all I see around me is opulence that only reminds me of what I am missing. How can I be content when I am left with nothing but this empty grandeur?" Jafar looked up, taken aback by the sharpness in her voice. He set aside his scrolls, his expression shifting to one of concern and confusion. "What troubles you now, Kamala?" he asked gently. "I thought you had found peace and insight." "Peace?" she resorted, her eyes flashing. "How can I find peace when I'm constantly reminded of what I don't have? The other woman's flaw was a symbol of something I have been denied. Your refusal to grant me the same has only deepened my feelings of jealousy. I am left feeling like a mere spectator in my own life." Jafar's face tightened with a mix of disappointment and sadness. He had hoped that Kamala's journey would lead to a greater appreciation of their life together, but instead, it seemed to have fueled her discontent. "Your feelings are understandable," he said, trying to maintain his composure, "but they are clouding your judgment. My promise was not merely about granting a material object, but about fostering true understanding and contentment. Your ongoing discontent reveals a deeper struggle within you." Kamala's frustration boiled over. The realization that Jafar's wisdom had not alleviated her feelings of jealousy struck with a jolt. She felt not only betrayed by Jafar, but by her own unresolved emotions. "Perhaps your wisdom is not as profound as you claim," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "You cannot fill the void left by your refusal to act upon my desires. I am tired of pretending that this palace and your promises can satisfy what I truly seek." With a defiant gesture, Kamala turned and stormed out of the study, leaving Jafar alone amidst his scrolls. He stared after her, a deep sense of sadness settling over him. The palace, once a symbol of their shared dreams, now felt like a prison of unmet expectations and jealousy. Outside the gardens were bathed in the silvery light of the moon. Kamala wandered through them, her thoughts dark and tangled. She stopped beneath the grand tree, a place that had once symbolized hope and renewal for her. Now it seemed a stark reminder of her unresolved feelings. Standing there, her heart heavy with envy and frustration, she reflected on her journey. The black flaw that had once represented her deepest desires now seemed a distant and unattainable dream. The more she thought about it, the more she felt isolated and disconnected from the life she had envisioned. "I sought fulfillment," Kamala muttered to herself, her voice carrying on the night breeze. "But all I have found is more reason to be envious. My desires remain unfilled, and my heart is weighed down by the bitterness of what could have been." As she stood beneath the ancient tree, the weight of her jealousy and unfulfilled desires seemed almost untangible. The palace with its grandeur and promises felt increasingly distant, unable to bridge the chasm that had opened between her and Jafar. Kamala was left grappling with the complexities of her own heart, her journey marked by the unresolved shadows of envy and dissatisfaction.